The word tourist was used in 1772 and tourism in 1811. It is formed from the word tour, which is derived from Old English turion, from Old French tourner, from Latin tournere, to turn on a lathe, which is itself from Ancient Greek. The word tourist was used in 1772 and tourism in 1811. It is formed from the word tour, which is derived from Old English turion, from Old French tourner, from Latin tournere, to turn on a lathe, which is itself from Ancient Greek tournos, lathe. In 1936, the League of Nations defined a foreign tourist as in quat, someone traveling abroad for at least 24 hours in quat. Its successor, the United Nations, amended this definition in 1945, by including a maximum stay of 6 months. Traveling for pleasure can be seen in Egypt as early on as 1500 BC. During the Roman Republic, spas and coastal resorts such as Baiae were popular among the rich. The Roman upper class used to spend their free time on land or at sea and traveled to their Villa Urbana or Villa Maritima. Numerous villas were located in Campania, around Rome and in the northern part of the Adriatic as in Barcola near Trieste. Pausanias wrote his description of Greece in the 2nd century AD. In ancient China, nobles sometimes made a point of visiting Mount Tai and, on occasion, all 5 sacred mountains. By the Middle Ages, Christianity and Buddhism and Islam had traditions of pilgrimage. Chaucer's Canterbury Tales and Wu Cheng'an's Journey to the West remain classics of English and Chinese literature. A Japanese tourist consulting a tour guide and a guidebook from Akazato Rito's Miyako Meisho Zu, 1787, the 10th to 13th century Song dynasty, also saw secular travel writers such as Su Shi, 11th century, and Fan Chanda, 12th century, become popular in China. Under the Ming, Shu Shaki continued the practice. In medieval Italy, Francesco Petrarch also wrote an allegorical account of his 1336 ascent of Mount Ventoux that praised the act of traveling and criticized frigida incuriositas, cold lack of curiosity. The Burgundian poet Michaud Taillevent later composed his own horrified recollections of a 1430 trip through the Jura Mountains. Modern tourism can be traced to what was known as the Grand Tour, which was a traditional trip around Europe, especially Germany and Italy, undertaken by mainly upper-class European young men of means, mainly from Western and Northern European countries. In 1624, the young Prince of Poland, Ladislaus Sigismund Vasa, the eldest son of Sigismund III, embarked on a journey across Europe, as was in custom among Polish nobility. He traveled through territories of today's Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, where he admired the siege of Breda by Spanish forces, France, Switzerland to Italy, Austria, and the Czech Republic. It was an educational journey, and one of the outcomes was introduction of Italian opera in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. The custom flourished from about 1660 until the advent of large-scale rail transit in the 1840s and generally followed a standard itinerary. It was an educational opportunity and rite of passage. Though primarily associated with the British nobility and wealthy landed gentry, similar trips were made by wealthy young men of Protestant Northern European nations on the continent, and from the second half of the 18th century some South American, U.S., and other overseas youth joined in. The tradition was extended to include more of the middle class after rail and steamship travel made the journey easier, and Thomas Cook made the en quat, Cook's Tour en quat, a byword. The Grand Tour became a real status symbol for upper-class students in the 18th and 19th centuries. In this period, Joachim Winckelmann's theories about the supremacy of classic culture became very popular and appreciated in the European academic world. Artists, writers, and travelers, such as Goethe, affirmed the supremacy of classic art, of which Italy, France, and Greece provide excellent examples. For these reasons, the Grand Tour's main destinations were to those centers, where upper-class students could find rare examples of classic art and history. Leisure travel was associated with the Industrial Revolution in the United Kingdom, the first European country to promote leisure time to the increasing industrial population. Initially, this applied to the owners of the machinery of production, the economic oligarchy, factory owners and traders. These comprised the new middle class. Cox and Kings was the first official travel company to be formed in 1758. The British origin of this new industry is reflected in many place names. In Nice, France, one of the first and best established holiday resorts on the French Riviera, the long esplanade along the seafront is known to this day as the Promenade des Anglais. In many other historic resorts in continental Europe, old, well-established palace hotels have names like the Hotel Bristol, Hotel Carlton, or Hotel Majestic, reflecting the dominance of English customers. Panels from the Thomas Cook Building in Leicester, displaying excursions offered by Thomas Cook. Leicester Railway Station, built in 1894 to replace, largely on the same site, Campbell Street Station, the origin for many of Cook's early tours. A pioneer of the travel agency business, Thomas Cook's idea to offer excursions came to him while waiting for the stagecoach on the London Road at Kibworth. With the opening of the extended Midland Counties Railway, he arranged to take a group of 540 temperance campaigners from Leicester Campbell Street Station to a rally in Loughborough, 11 miles, 18 kilometres, away. On 5 July 1841, Thomas Cook arranged for the rail company to charge 1 shilling per person. This included rail tickets and food for the journey. Cook was paid a share of the fares charged to the passengers, as the railway tickets, being legal contracts between company and passenger, could not have been issued at his own price. This was the first privately chartered excursion train to be advertised to the general public. Cook himself acknowledged that there had been previous, unadvertised, private excursion trains. During the following 3 summers he planned and conducted outings for temperance societies and Sunday school children. In 1844, the Midland Counties Railway Company agreed to make a permanent arrangement with him, provided he found the passengers. This success led him to start his own business running rail excursions for pleasure, taking a percentage of the railway fares. In 1855, he planned his first excursion abroad, when he took a group from Leicester to Calais to coincide with the Paris exhibition. The following year he started his en quête, Grand Circular Tours en quête, of Europe. During the 1860s he took parties to Switzerland, Italy, Egypt, and the United States. Cook established en quête, inclusive independent travel en quête, whereby the traveler went independently but his agency charged for travel, food, and accommodation for a fixed period over any chosen route. Such was his success that the Scottish railway companies withdrew their support between 1862 and 1863 to try the excursion business for themselves. The tourism industry, as part of the service sector, has become an important source of income for many regions and even for entire countries. The Manila Declaration on World Tourism of 1980 recognized its importance as en quête, an activity essential to the life of nations because of its direct effects on the social, cultural, educational, and economic sectors of national societies, and on their international relations. Tourism brings large amounts of income into a local economy in the form of payment for goods and services needed by tourists, accounting as of 2011 for 30% of the world's trade in services, and, as an invisible export, for 6% of overall exports of goods and services. It also generates opportunities for employment in the service sector of the economy associated with tourism. It is also claimed that travel broadens the mind. Cruising is a popular form of water tourism. Leisure cruise ships were introduced by the Peninsular and Oriental Steam Navigation Company, Pondo, in 1844, sailing from Southampton to destinations such as Gibraltar, Malta and Athens. In 1891, German businessman Albert Ballin sailed the ship Augusta Victoria from Hamburg into the Mediterranean Sea. The 29th of June 1900 saw the launching of the first purpose-built cruise ship was Prinzessin Victoria Louise, built in Hamburg for the Hamburg America Line. Academics have defined mass tourism as travel by groups on pre-scheduled tours, usually under the organization of tourism professionals. This form of tourism developed during the second half of the 19th century in the United Kingdom and was pioneered by Thomas Cook. Cook took advantage of Europe's rapidly expanding railway network and established a company that offered affordable day trip excursions to the masses, in addition to longer holidays to continental Europe, India, Asia and the Western Hemisphere, which attracted wealthier customers. By the 1890s, over 20,000 tourists per year used Thomas Cook & Son. St. Moritz, Switzerland became the cradle of the developing winter tourism in the 1860s. Hotel manager Johannes Baudret invited some summer guests from England to return in the winter to see the snowy landscape, thereby inaugurating a popular trend. It was, however, only in the 1970s when winter tourism took over the lead from summer tourism in many of the Swiss ski resorts. Even in winter, up to one-third of all guests, depending on the location, consist of non-skiers.